Mr. Wise, I would like you to elaborate on your concerns with the collective action clause the way it is currently drafted. As I understand it, your concern is that it is too cumbersome, or it's not streamlined enough, and you want this to work. But can you expand what's wrong with the collective action clause process that this bill provides for?
Congressman, we believe that the intent is for this to work, that there are important drafting items which we need to review with the committee, and we'll begin to do so immediately following this hearing. But the intent is to provide for a voluntary path with incentives to reach agreement, and in the event that this fails, a restructuring mechanism to allow the Commonwealth to emerge with a sustainable debt load. If these principles are respected in the drafting, we believe we can work with the committee to get there.
Okay. Now, Mr. Miller, as I understood your testimony, you're saying that in general terms, the markets are welcoming this bill. The markets are looking forward to a restructuring. And in your view, it is better to have an orderly restructuring process as opposed to litigation all over the place. That's how I read what you said. Now, as I see it, when we talk about collective action clause, these terms, get in the way, but let me explain them and then you correct me. And cram down, what we're talking about is anytime you want to restructure debt, you want to reach all the creditors of the entity in question. If you don't reach them all, then the deal will mean so much. And when you need to restructure, again, you try to reach them all. So collective action is another way of saying, if you have 2/3 majority of the creditors supporting the deal, then you can go to court to enforce the deal on all. And the same pretty much applies on the cram down concept. What's happening in Puerto Rico is that we can negotiate with the creditors of PREPA, the power company, and we can negotiate with the creditors of the water and sewer company, but we cannot reach them all. We don't have a structure. Now, would you comment, Mr. Miller?
Sure. Thank you very much for the question, Congressman. The reasons why I did allude to the fact that I think the marketplace is prepared and more welcoming of this bill is for the following reasons. The independence of the board, getting fresh audits, getting transparency over what the fiscal situation actually is, those are all positives to the marketplace as a whole. The determination of the level of debt that the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico can actually handle longer term and grow the economy and be a stable credit, that's positive. I think versus alternatives, the litigation is building, the defaults are coming regardless. And I think the marketplace, you can see in the pricing, the marketplace knows that's going to happen anyway. The 67% figure that you're alluding to, that is in part, this is a large and very diverse, widely held set of bonds and set of indentures. And in such a circumstance, you'll never get to 100%. It's impossible.
Thank you. Let me quickly address you, Mr. Kirpalani, and the audience. This is not Chapter 9. I have a Chapter 9 bill. Mr. Duffy had a Chapter 9 bill. This is not super Chapter 9. Why not? Because there's a federal oversight board acting as a gatekeeper here, making sure there's no abuse of the Chapter 9 process, of the bankruptcy rules. There's nothing wrong with the bankruptcy rules. Congress enacted them. But we want them to be applied fairly, and that's why you have this board being created to oversee this. Do you agree, Mr. Kirpalani?
Thank you, Congressman. I 100% agree with that statement. And I would also say that our laws, our bankruptcy laws and restructuring laws from 100 years, they are the envy of the world. They are the hallmark of an efficient financial system. And I was hired several years ago by Dubai to pass legislation and help them draft it. They never even had to use it, because every creditor organized itself and voluntarily agreed because they understood the rules. And the same thing can happen for Puerto Rico.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McClintock.